If you grew up watching The Andy Griffith Show, you probably remember the charm of Mayberry, the laughter, the warmth, the small-town magic. But what if I told you that hidden beneath that perfect picture are slip-ups, little mistakes, and even bloopers that somehow made it into the final cut? From props that don't quite behave, to wardrobe mishaps, to continuity errors. You can only spot if you're paying close attention. These moments reveal the human side of television production in the 1960s. And the best part, once you notice them, you'll never look at the show the same way again. In today's video, we'll uncover the funniest, strangest, and most surprising mistakes that slipped right past the cameras and into TV history. Let's dive in and see how Mayberry wasn't always as flawless as it seemed. In the episode, The Big House, Gomer, with all the enthusiasm in the world, shows off his technique for drawing a gun. It's classic Gomer, eager, clumsy, and unintentionally destructive. With a sudden pull and a sharp crack, the glass behind him shatters in full view of the audience. You'd expect the scene to carry that chaos into the next shot. After all, a broken window is hard to ignore. But in the very next cut, something magical or perhaps just forgetful happens. The shelf that should have been damaged is suddenly good as new. The glass is intact, the setting calm, as though Gomer's little mishap never took place. It's one of those continuity slips that viewers at the time might not have noticed. Remember, there were no DVRs or pause buttons in the 1960s. Audiences took the show as it came, moment by moment. Yet, for today's fans who rewatch the series on DVD or streaming, the error pops right out. It's a reminder of the tight schedules, the limited budgets, and the fix-it-in-the-edit mentality of classic television. More importantly, it's a reminder of why we still love Mayberry. These slip-ups aren't distractions, they're little windows into how TV was made in a very different era. Imperfect, yes, but charming all the same. If there's one character who always brought a gentle, quirky charm to Mayberry, it was Floyd the barber. With his soft-spoken manner and slightly scatterbrained ways, Floyd had a knack for making even the simplest scenes feel warm and memorable. But in the Season 4 episode, The Rumor, Floyd became the center of a continuity mistake that's hard to unsee once you notice it. As the townsfolk whisper and speculate, spinning small-town gossip into something much larger, Floyd appears in one scene wearing a pair of glasses. The moment feels ordinary, just Floyd being Floyd. But with a quick change in camera angle, something curious happens. His glasses suddenly transform into an entirely different pair. One moment he's wearing rounded frames, and the next, they've shifted into a completely new style. It's not the kind of error that derails the story, but it does create a little hiccup in Mayberry's perfect picture. Continuity slips like this often happened when scenes were filmed out of order or reshot days later. For the crew, it was a minor oversight. For modern fans, though, it's a small delight, a reminder that even in carefully crafted television, little mistakes slipped through the cracks. And truth be told, it almost feels fitting for Floyd. His absent-minded nature made the sudden change in glasses seem oddly in character. It's the kind of blooper that doesn't break the spell of Mayberry, but instead makes it feel a little more human, a little more real. When it comes to memorable characters, Barney Fife takes the crown, nervous, loyal, and forever trying to prove himself. Barney could turn even the smallest moment into pure comedy, but sometimes the laughs didn't come from Don Knotts' acting, they came from a little slip behind the scenes. In the episode Barney's Physical, the deputy is seen wearing a plain shirt, simple and pocketless. The look fits Barney perfectly, neat, straightforward, and just a little unassuming. Yet, in the blink of an eye, and with just a cut to the next shot, his wardrobe seems to change on its own. Suddenly, that same shirt has sprouted a breast pocket, and to make things even more obvious, there's a cigarette pack peeking right out of it. It's one of those classic continuity errors that probably went unnoticed during the show's original run. Back in the 1960s, episodes were filmed quickly, often with long hours and minimal chances for reshoots, a shirt swap, or even a last-minute wardrobe substitution wasn't always caught in time. For today's sharp-eyed viewers, though, it sticks out immediately. But here's the thing fans don't mind. In fact, moments like this add another layer of charm to Mayberry. Barney's shirt may have changed, but his character remained exactly the same, endearing, hilarious, and unforgettable. It's a gentle reminder that while television strives for perfection, sometimes the imperfections are what we remember most. Opie Taylor was the heart of the Andy Griffith Show. With his boyish charm and wide-eyed innocence, he captured the essence of growing up in Mayberry. But even little Opie couldn't escape the occasional behind-the-scenes slip. In Season 4's Opie's Ill-Gotten Gain, there's a moment that sharp-eyed viewers can spot right away. As Opie rolls up with his trusty bicycle, everything looks perfectly normal until you notice the bell. In one shot, the bell sits proudly on the left side of his handlebars. But with a quick cut, it suddenly jumps over to the right side. The bike itself hasn't changed. Of course, what likely happened is that the editors used a reversed shot flipping the film to match the direction of the action. For audiences back in the 60s, this probably slid right by. Without pause or rewind, the scene flowed as intended. But for modern viewers, it's a fascinating little clue about how television was made in a more hands-on, analog age. Sometimes the simplest solution, like flipping a shot, was faster than setting up an entirely new scene. What makes this blooper even more charming is that it doesn't break the spirit of the show. Opie, with or without a magically moving bicycle bell, remains the same lovable boy of Mayberry. And for fans, spotting these tiny quirks has become part of the fun of rewatching a classic. Sometimes the funniest bloopers aren't about props or costumes, they're about where the actors are standing. In the Season 3 episode Mountain Wedding, Andy and Barney head up into the hills to deal with the ever-rowdy Darling family. It's one of those episodes packed with rustic comedy, mountain mischief, and the perfect clash between Mayberry's lawmen and the Darlings' backwoods ways. But in the middle of it all, a little continuity slip sneaks through. In one shot, Andy is clearly standing on one side of Briscoe Darling, while Barney is on the other. The camera cuts, the dialogue continues, and suddenly, the two deputies have swapped sides. No explanation, no movement, no shuffle across the floor. Just a quick cut, and their positions have magically flipped. For the casual viewer in 1963, this likely didn't cause a second thought. The story moved along, the jokes landed, and the scene worked just fine. But for modern audiences revisiting the show in crisp digital quality, it's impossible not to smile at the jump. It's the kind of blooper that captures the pace of classic television production. Episodes were filmed fast, sometimes with minimal coverage, and small slip-ups slipped right past the editors. And yet, rather than ruin the magic, it only adds to it. Seeing Andy and Barney change places without moving is almost like watching a bit of Mayberry magic unintended, but oddly fitting for a town where surprises seem to pop up around every corner. Some episodes of The Andy Griffith Show carry more weight than others, and A Black Day for Mayberry is one of them. In this story, the sleepy little town is caught up in high drama when a shipment of gold passes through, bringing unexpected danger to Mayberry. It's suspenseful, serious, and sprinkled with a few bloopers that slipped right through the cracks. One of the most noticeable mistakes happens with Barney's coat. In one shot, it's completely drenched, hanging heavy and dripping as if he just stepped out into a rainstorm. But the very next time we see him, that same coat looks perfectly dry, neat, and pressed without so much as a damp spot. Moments later, it switches back again. Clearly, different takes were filmed hours apart, and the editors stitched them together without catching the mismatch. And it doesn't stop there. During a scene in the town hall, two men are shown wearing hats as they listen in. But when the camera cuts to another angle, the hats are gone. Cut again. And like magic, they're back on their heads. For fans today, these details stand out as charming quirks of old-school television. They remind us that episodes were pieced together quickly, often under pressure to meet deadlines. Yet somehow, the story still shines through, and the little mistakes only add to the fun. After all, Mayberry was never about perfection, it was about character, warmth, and the humor of life's everyday surprises. By the time the bank job aired, the show had already earned its reputation as a television favorite. But like any production of the 1960s, it relied heavily on practical effects, and sometimes those effects revealed a little more than they were supposed to. In this particular episode, a tense moment unfolds when a robber's gun is knocked away. The weapon should look like it's flying out of his hands in dramatic fashion. But if you watch closely, you'll spot the secret behind the magic: a string. The gun jerks unnaturally, pulled not by the robber's grip, but by a wire tugged off camera. For modern viewers with high-definition screens, the string's hard to miss. And that wasn't the only time wires crept into Mayberry. In several episodes, keen-eyed fans have noticed microphone cords trailing down the actor's pants legs. Episodes like The Darlings Are Coming and Opie the Bird, man, are two clear examples. Back then, wireless microphones weren't the norm, and hiding the bulky equipment was a daily challenge for the crew. Sometimes, despite their best efforts, the wires slipped into frame. Rather than spoiling the show, these technical hiccups add a layer of nostalgia. They're a snapshot of how television was made: resourceful, fast-paced, and not always perfect. And in a way, those visible wires connect us to the reality behind the illusion: a hard-working crew doing everything they could to bring Mayberry to life, even if the seams sometimes showed. When we look back at these little slip-ups, they don't make the Andy Griffith Show any less special. If anything, they remind us how human and handmade television once was. A flipped shot, a misplaced hat, or even a string pulling a gun, each mistake is really just a peek behind the curtain of Mayberry's magic. And maybe that's why fans still return, decade after decade. Did you ever catch one of these bloopers on your own, or maybe you noticed one we didn't mention here? Share your favorite Mayberry slip-ups in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because every week we bring more hidden stories from the golden days of the 1960s.